Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back at the second session of the Dutch Blockchain Week. We're very excited to have you with us. If you joined the first session, still with us. If you want to ask any questions to our speakers, then please, you can use the chat functionality in the platform in which you are currently looking the live stream at. You can use Twitter. The hashtag is DBW2020. That's Dutch Blockchain Week 2020 in hashtag. Or you can use our form at the website dutchblockchainweek.com/Q. Your questions will end up at my screen and I can ask them then for you to our speakers. So welcome back. This session will be about critical pathways. What are the important next steps in the critical challenges for blockchain technology in the upcoming future? And how should they be approached? We're going to listen to a few thought leaders from all over the world that will share their ideas with us. We're directly going to start with the first speaker, Philipp Sandner. Philipp is a German economist and professor at the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. And he's also head of the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center. He's a widely and broadly recognized about his blockchain expertise, received several scholarships, best paper awards, and publications in numerous prestigious global outlets. He also wrote 2 books, and he is one of the thought leaders when it comes to the critical challenges for blockchain in the upcoming future. Without further ado, I really like to introduce you to Philipp Sandner. Philipp, welcome to the virtual stage.
Perfect. I hope it works. I now need to open my slides, and then I will directly start with the presentation. I hope you can see me, and the quality is basically quite okay. And it would be great if I would be allowed by the operators to share my screen. This would be amazing.
All right. So we're going to work on that right now. It's of course, always a little challenge to work on this virtually, but great. I mean, we have you. Actually, you're currently calling in from Frankfurt. Is that right?
Well, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in Germany, but not in Frankfurt right now. Right now, I'm sitting in the area of Munich, and no worries. Until the technology is working, I will simply start with the presentation, and the slides will then be added later. That's really not a problem at all. So first of all, let's talk about the digital euro. We first have to define what exactly is it, because people, of course, know that in case they have their cell phone here, for example, then you already have online banking there. It does work, and of course people would then assume that it's digital already. But there is a huge difference here, and the difference is basically that if we talk about the digital euro, then very often people mean that it's the euro running on top of a blockchain platform. And here, of course, you already know that something like this exists. It's called stablecoin, and we know it from the crypto world, for example, that projects such as Tether, for example, PEX, USDC, also Circle, Coinbase, US dollar, and so on, they all are already there and representing a traditional currency on top of it. Okay, and now that the screen sharing works, I can now switch to the slides, and I hope you can see them. Maybe some of you guys quickly tell me whether you can see the slides, then I will proceed.
I will hear from the technical crew if the slides are already on. They're running. Please let me know if it's okay.
Excellent.
Yes, all right. Philipp, please, the stage is yours.
Yes, then I proceed. Yeah, and then, well, I go back to the quick presentation of myself quickly, and then I proceed with the topic. So we have founded a blockchain center at the university in Frankfurt, which is called Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, and we are focusing on, of course, education, but also doing conferences, bringing together the community, doing consulting, and also helping a couple of startups coming here from the university side as a think tank. So first of all, what key domains are out there next to the digital euro? We have traditional crypto assets. That's, for example, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Then we have another topic which is gaining some traction these days in Europe. That's digital securities. That's basically dematerialized securities on blockchain. And finally, we have the digital euro potentially running on a blockchain. In Germany, I have some information, of course. We have a quite progressive Ministry of Finance who have now created a crypto license for those companies in Germany who are handling Bitcoins and Ethereum on behalf of others. So that's called a crypto license. And this is in force since January already. This will drive digital assets and crypto assets. Then we have also a proposal for a new law coming up in the area of digital securities. That's basically affecting the securities market. And luckily, we will also have the European Commission pushing this entire topic, and that's now where we talk about the digital euro. The European Commission some weeks ago proposed their so-called MiCA regime, which would affect any crypto asset out there. It would affect, of course, traditional crypto assets, Bitcoin and so on. It would affect private stable coins. That's basically something like Facebook and the project Libra, now renamed to Diem, by the way. And of course, parts of the euro on blockchain. So let me quickly dive into the MiCA regulation, which is really a fascinating document, because what the European Commission tries to do here is basically regulating everything related to crypto assets for the entire European or EU, for the entire European continent. That's 450 million people, all regulated with one uniform regime, right? It's quite massive. And they here created the category of crypto assets, as you can see it here, which is a brand new asset class, let's call it that way, and needs to be separated from digital securities, which are already existing, of course. You know, that's all securities, all stocks, all bonds out there. Here are some examples. But you see here that these gray boxes, they are not overlapping each other. So you have bonds and shares and securities on the right-hand side, and you have traditional crypto assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on the left-hand side. And they do not overlap. So that's basically a new asset class, which is here proposed. And this is now where we talk about the euro. We have the e-money regime, which is helpful for letting the euro being ran on digital system in general. And now we are having very soon the so-called e-money token. That's basically something like a stable coin, but a stable coin plus the e-money license, such that it's not just a stable coin anymore, it's the euro on a blockchain format, right? In case such a stable coin is not referencing the euro, but any other asset, for example, gold or diamonds or any other things, then you would call it an asset reference token according to the European Commission's proposal. Here are some examples. And in case you have very significant token sizes, so in case the market capitalization is getting really high, then you would call it significant e-money token. And here now European financial authorities are responsible for regulation, whereas with the normal e-money token, the national financial market authority in Germany, the BaFin, for example, would be responsible. And you also have utility tokens here as one silo, which will also be regulated for e-money tokens and asset reference tokens. Issuers have to get permission by regulatory bodies, but for utility tokens, they have to, of course, comply to some rules, but they do not have to ask for permission for issuing such assets, right? And you see here now with these silos, the European Commission tackles 95% of all crypto assets, I would say so, but it's not touching digital securities yet. You see that these gray boxes are not overlapping with this digital security box. And now, where are we in terms of time? Everybody now has a smartphone. We have a market coverage of 100% with regard to smartphones, right? Everybody's having a smartphone. But back in 2005, I would say that nobody, or nearly nobody, had a smartphone. At that time, there was the iPhone 1, which came to the market. And then it took us now 15 years to get from 0% to 100%. That's 12 iPhone generations. That's billions of devices sold to all kinds of countries in the entire world. So it's a revolution which took place here with the smartphone. So we should not forget that 15 years ago, there was no iPhone out there, right? Sometimes we forget this. And if we now turn towards blockchain and DLT, the question is now, where are we standing in the year 2020? Are we at 50% or 10%? So how would you draw the line in here? My suggestion would be that we are right here, right in the very, very, very early beginning, where blockchain now is starting to take up. And the journey is pretty clear. It will take another 15 years until we will have reached 100% of market coverage, right? So that's the journey which we can expect for the years to come, and it will affect traditional crypto assets. It will affect private stable coins, digital securities, and also the digital programmable euro. What is 100%? By the way, this would, in my personal opinion, be any financial asset running, really any financial asset running on blockchain systems. That's securities, stocks, bonds, money, maybe even the car register, crypto assets, and so on. Everything then running on blockchain-based systems by the year 2035 or 2040. That would be my, of course, speculative expectation. And therefore, it's so fun, to be honest, to be in this industry, because right now the dynamic is evolving and progressing. And we see also in Germany, which is sometimes lagging a little bit behind with digital technologies, we are really seeing some dynamics going on in the financial industry, but also in the industrial companies. So this kind of dynamic, you can already feel it a little bit. Yeah? And of course, you know it, the Bitcoin price is also rising. So the dynamic in the Bitcoin world is already there. So therefore, I'm quite positive about the future. So now let's turn a little bit more to the digital euro. Why do we need it actually? I think we have more efficient cross-border payments, not necessarily between, for example, Germany and the Netherlands. That works already quite nice, forth and back, but more or less primarily for those countries not denominated in euro. So basically payments going outside the eurozone, they would dramatically benefit from such a digital programmable euro. You could then transfer, for example, the euro from here to South Korea within, say, 10 or 15 seconds, right? That's massive, and this does not work right now. Then we would have, for the industry, especially the possibility to automate payments and business processes. That's the world of smart contracts, which would then be allowed to denominate euro, yeah? So to plug the euro into smart contracts. Then we would have something which is called integration between delivery and payment. That's a massive topic, which means that we would have one single blockchain system where there is the euro plugged on top of it and securities as well. So you have stocks on the system and you have the euro for payment, such that you can do trading, settlement, consumption of products and services without leaving this platform, which would then allow a much higher efficiency, and which would also allow that consumption processes and also trading would happen without any clearing houses. That's really a dramatic benefit in terms of speed and transaction costs being driven down. And there is like huge benefit in this point here, even though, of course, it's not easy to really explain it, because it's really something technical. This just makes sense if we have rights and assets to be tokenized. So therefore, very soon we will have regulatory frameworks in place to then also be able to tokenize assets and rights. This will also come in the future. I think one of the key important aspects why the digital euro makes sense is the realm of the machine economy, the Internet of Things, so to say, where we very soon see devices such as cars, sensors, medical tech devices, and so on being connected to blockchain networks, but also being able to receive money and send money as devices. Yeah, that's not just the autonomous car driving around autonomously. It's also the autonomous car which is doing autonomous payment and autonomous accounting. That's the next step of autonomous devices. But of course, this will just happen in a couple of years. That's just now popping up at the end of the horizon right now. And there is number 6, IT security and system resilience is also quite high with blockchain system. China, by the way, is having a different agenda. They, of course, also encourage these reasons here, but they are having another agenda, which we do not have in Europe, by the way. China also tries to raise the importance of their national currency in the world by creating a digital version of their Chinese currency, right? The ECB and the European Commission is not having the agenda of increasing the importance of the euro at the expense of the US dollar. Therefore, this development is much more speedier in China, putting currencies on blockchain-based systems because they have this agenda of raising the importance of their currency. So why do we need all this, right? Where are the companies who are experimenting with this? We just, in Germany, I can tell you, I don't know about other European countries, I'm very sorry, but in Germany we have chemical companies such as BASF or Evonik experimenting with the digital euro. We also have Daimler cars and also Bosch, that sensor technologies experimenting with it. So we have a couple of large-scale companies having visions for new business model with the digital euro. But to be honest, not too much is happening out there. It's, I would say 10 to 50 large-scale companies dealing with this, but the entire SME companies in Germany have not yet discovered this topic. So we have industrial domains, for example, mobility in Europe, machinery, sensors, logistics, and energy. And then we have financial domains, for example, payments, leasing, securitization, factoring, and escrow services, right? You have the financial domains on the right-hand side, you have industry domains on the left-hand side. And the fascinating topic is now that blockchain technology will integrate the left-hand side with the right-hand side. Here is an example, that's a truck. So imagine this truck will drive autonomously in the future, but it will not just drive autonomously, it will also receive money from me in case I order the truck to transport something from A to B. So I will have to pay the truck for it. Today I would pay the logistics company. In the future I will directly pay the truck. So this is not just a self-driving truck, it is also a truck which will receive and do accounting for euro in the future as an autonomous device. So here you see that mobility and payment is being integrated. That's basically connecting the truck to a payment network. That's exactly blockchain at its best, because the truck would be an endpoint of a blockchain system, because it would have, for example, a public wallet address for receiving euro. That's another example, for example, from the world of sensors. Imagine this sensor is collecting data, it's storing the data in a database system, and it's selling the data once it's receiving money for it. So the sensor would, for example, sell data to me in case I'm paying €2.50 to the sensor. So the sensor is waiting for money to arrive, and if money arrives, then it's sending the data back to me. Could be weather sensor, humidity sensor, all kinds of things. Could be medical technology sensor, and so on. And the sensor could also say that he sells me the entire data from last year. Like tons of gigabyte of data, and then the sensor would charge me not €2.50, but maybe €400. Here you would combine sensor technology with escrow services, right? So that's also blockchain at its best by combining the sensor with a digital euro payment network. And that's exactly where I would expect many, many startups to be founded, new business models being explored, where the left-hand side industry domain is meeting finance, because blockchain is exactly the technology which is very soon combining the left-hand side and the right-hand side. But you have to have the digital euro, otherwise it doesn't make sense so much. So here is one concrete example, and then I think I also have to stop very soon. Here is one example where a company is acting in Austria, and they are now starting to connect their tractors to blockchain and to euro payments on blockchain. So right now, the business model of the tractor company is basically selling one tractor that costs you, say, €80,000, right? And in the future, we would have pay-per-use business models, such as the tractor is not sold to a city council, for example, but rather the service of the tractor is being sold. This could, for example, be that what's being sold is 1 kilometer with a road, with road grid, right? Little stones on the grid, plus insurance. So what's being sold in the future to, for example, city councils is not the tractor anymore, as it's happening right now, but in the future, what you will sell to city councils will be kilometers of road grid plus insurance, because in the winter you have to put small stones and salt on the street. So this delivery service will be serviced to city councils, and invoicing will be done pay-per-use. That means per kilometer. So what's happening here is, in the future, delivery of service plus payment and accounting, this will all be integrated in one system. And the system will be a blockchain-based system where payment occurs in euro, where the tractor is basically mirrored with a digital twin. And accounting is also triggered, for example, with an SAP system, but it's triggered by this joint system of a blockchain network, right? And the fascinating thing is that this entire transaction is finalized after, say, 1 kilometer when the tractor is driving on the road. So right now, when you are selling a tractor, you are selling the tractor, and then after weeks, you get the invoice. After weeks, you're doing the accounting. The tractor might amortize after a couple of years. So the transaction will not be finalized after a couple of weeks or months, but rather maybe after years, up until the tractor has been fully depreciated, right? And here, a pay-per-use transaction would be 100% finalized after 1 kilometer, for example, when the street ends, because then delivery has ended of putting road grid on the street, payment has been executed for paying these kilometers, and accounting, that's basically sending the invoice, has also been finalized right away.
Talking about finalize, would it be possible to also finalize the presentation, Mr. Sandler?
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's the last sentence here, and it's also the last slide, because what you see here is basically that we will see many various pay-per-use business models coming up, and what I just have shown you with the tractor is just one single example, because you can apply this to any kind of sensors, machinery, and so on. If you would like to know more about it, then please get in touch with me. That's would be love to hear from you via LinkedIn or email. And I hope I clarified a little bit why it does make sense to deal with the digital programmable euro. And sorry for being a little bit over time, sorry.
No worries, no worries. It was a pleasure hearing from your sides, and especially about these very, very topical things like the digital euro and regulation from the numerous reports that have been written about what is next for blockchain and the critical challenges for blockchain in the foreseen future. I think, regulation is one of the most important aspects. And of course, the digital euro. I've read that in January, the European Commission will make a decision about the digital euro, if it will proceed. Is that correct?
It's yes and no. It's much more complicated, to be honest. I could now talk 2 hours, right? What is allowed when and what, but I will not promise. So the European Commission has proposed their MiCA regulation, which will come into force in 2022. So by then, in plus 2 years, plus 3 years, all regulation is there to let the euro being ran on blockchain systems, right? So this is already underway, but it's at this point of time a proposal which is being discussed with all European member states, right? Yeah. And the European Central Bank, they will act a little bit more slowly. They will decide in summer next year whether they would like to speed up their development in the area of the digital euro or not. Yeah. And then you have national central banks, and with this I would like to close. You have national central banks, for example, in France and elsewhere, and companies like smaller banks. In Germany, there are 5 who are as banks, as commercial banks, exploring the topic of the digital euro and issuing such an euro on blockchain networks. Right. So it's very complicated, but it's fun to watch, and it's dynamically evolving.
It is the European Union, and I think it's great when we compare it, for example, to the plans of the US dollar digitally. I think we are already quite some steps ahead. This will happen in January, this dialogue. Also happening in January is the launch of Diem, formerly known as Libra. What can we expect from this? I think a lot of people were actually, thinking that Libra would never launch. Now we hear that in January, part of it will actually launch. What are your insights on this?
So Libra is a fascinating topic because... Okay, I'm sorry.
So the view is currently being worked on, the stream with Mr. Sandler. apparently something is going on. Great. So the sound is still there. We will currently discuss what is actually happening with Libra. Libra, the project that was launched by Facebook, was initiated by Facebook. They received a lot of negative comments from governments all over the world. It was said that it would never launch. Even Mark Zuckerberg, in a letter to his investors, mentioned that it would probably never launch. And now, last week, there was an article I read an article in the Financial Times that Libra might launch in January already. They renamed it to Diem. And so we're very curious to learn what Mr. Sandner knows about this and, of course, what his thoughts are about this. Let's see if he is already back on track, if he's back in the studio. There he is. Yes.
Yes, it finally works. You never know with this technology stuff whether it works or not, but luckily it now works. We are having now finally everything under control. So let's directly talk about Libra. Libra has been the project initiated by Facebook 1.5 years ago. At that time, PayPal was there, Visa was interested, and so on. And that's basically have been quite a large impulse also for banks and central banks to investigate what is Libra here exactly doing. And you could also interpret this as basically, let's call it like an attack on the central bank, right? But this attack was just a white paper. And very soon, central banks and governments said, you cannot simply start a private currency. This will not be possible. And Facebook will also not be able to do it. It's just too important. It might disrupt financial systems. Therefore, we would not allow it. Yeah, that was the public sentiment quite a while. And then Libra basically changed their concept back in April this year. And since then, the idea of Libra was to not simply create a world coin, like one currency for the world, but rather to focus on the technical infrastructure for existing currencies, right? So that's not as visionary anymore, but therefore it would be possible to get allowance and permission by central banks and by governments, right? And since then, Libra, it has become a little bit silent up until last week. That's absolutely right. When Libra now proposed that they would leverage their own technical infrastructure next year and launch an US dollar referenced stablecoins, similarly as it is existing with the US dollar stablecoin called Coinbase. USD coin, as it's called USDC coin, for example, and others as well. So you see here that Libra, now called Diem since this week, they renamed themselves, that Libra, now called Diem, is basically stepping into the track what other companies have already been doing in the US. That's basically creating US dollar referenced stable coins plus the required license. It's not the vision anymore we had 1.5 years ago, but on the other hand side, it's basically a feasible project which you then also can bring live and can launch to the market. And we already have 2-3 stable coins of this kind, and I think we can expect that the Diem or the Libra stable coin being launched in January would immediately be a success in terms of size and capitalization. And then maybe let's see what happens. Maybe they will also, at a later stage, bring a euro reference stablecoin and other referenced stablecoins as well in the future.
Well, one question to round this discussion off, I was really curious about, if there's one thing that Facebook did really well, is that they kicked the hornet's nest quite hard. They really sped up the developments in China, for example. The USA is still lagging behind, it seems to. The European Union will decide, so in January, if they will continue with the project. Practically, when will we see a digital euro? When can consumers in Europe, in the Netherlands, for example, start actually using this digital euro? What do you think?
It's also a very difficult question. So to provide a simple answer, to be honest, it will happen next year. But this will be the euro on a blockchain, which will be issued by commercial banks, right? It will not be the euro issued by the European Central Bank. Yeah. So imagine existing banks out there. I think ING is very active, but in Germany, for example, Commerzbank, DZ Bank, and others, they are very active that they will create a software solution. And the software solution will then be ready for companies, such that companies, for example, Daimler and Bosch in Germany, could equip their sensors or their machines with the digital euro and allow their sensors and the machines to pay. This will happen next year already, but in smaller versions. This is not basically then ready for the entire European Union, but for a selected set of companies who would like to experiment with this. And I would expect also ING and other banks to explore this as well. So the short answer to your question is it will happen and start next year, but it will not go everything overnight. It will then basically increase in terms of more projects, more pilot projects, more POCs year by year. And we can expect the European Central Bank to launch potentially their version of the digital euro, maybe by 2025 or maybe by 2026. So that's really quite some time down the stream, right? Yeah. And here we also see that China is much more ahead. China is already live with their system. So the distance between the European Central Bank and the Chinese Central Bank is probably 4 to 6 years.
So, wow. That's quite a gap. That's really really interesting gap. Mr. Sander, many thanks. Many thanks for sharing your thoughts. You're also sharing your thoughts quite often in media like Forbes. As mentioned, you've written 2 books. So if people are interested in more of you, they will definitely find it if they Google your name online. Mr. Sander, again, many thanks for joining us from Munich. And wishing you all the best with your research in your incredible projects. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's quickly go to our next speaker. Our next speaker is tuning in from New York, and it's Duncan Huffman. Duncan is the General Manager EMEA at Chainalysis. Chainalysis is, well, they just became the new blockchain unicorn. They just raised $100 million over a $1 billion valuation. Usually people say that blockchain is the trust machine, and Chainalysis is a blockchain analysis company building trust in blockchain, providing data and analysis to governments, exchanges, and financial institutions. Well, in my perspective, Chainalysis is one of the most leading and most respected blockchain organizations globally. So we're very keen to learn from Duncan what is next and what are the critical challenges ahead. Duncan, welcome to the virtual stage.
Thanks very much for having me. Yes, I might add one small correction. I'm based in London, so I'm still in technically the European zone for now, I suppose.
Wonderful. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I might ask the organizers for help. How do I progress to the beginning of my presentation?
So the technical stuff will help you with. There we go.
So it looks like we're running now, right? This should be the opening slide.
It is. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So again, thanks for the very warm welcome. I'm so pleased to be here today. I wish we could do this in person, of course, but I'm sure I'm not the first person to express that. Of course, in the meantime, we can certainly get going with these virtual presentations. So I might point out we've had a little bit of difficulty with some formatting errors, but again, in the times of COVID, I think we can kind of get through anything. But one of the things that I'd like to do today is walk through how we, Chainalysis, use on-chain data to research cryptocurrency as a whole. So we'll walk through recent reports we've published about global cryptocurrency flows on-chain and some of the patterns we've noticed emerging. Understanding how various crypto markets operate is then really particularly important when it comes to understanding money laundering on the blockchain, because it gives us a window into which flows are mimicking the money laundering networks we see in the traditional fiat world. Later in the presentation, I will walk through some traditional cybercrime trends that we're seeing through 2020, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that a large part of criminal activity which uses cryptocurrency falls into the category of cyber-enabled crime as opposed to cybercrime. And so this is typical transnational, organized, and serious crime, which occurs offline, but then converts dirty fiat to cryptocurrency for its role as a remittance method. With these types of crimes, there's nothing really novel or different about the activities, except that instead of wiring fiat through, Western Union or some other remittance method, the money goes through Bitcoin to what are called controllers in money laundering hubs around the world. And of course, with the recent surge in Bitcoin price, I figured I would also touch on that at the beginning, just to give our take on it using on-chain data, so we can see what's really going on here. But first, I do want to introduce Chainalysis to those of you who may not know us. We are the blockchain analysis company. We provide cryptocurrency compliance and investigation software to over 330 customers between government and private sector in more than 50 countries. Our data and analysis, education, and support create transparency across blockchains, so government agencies, exchanges, and financial institutions across the world can engage confidently with cryptocurrency. So our mission is really to build trust in blockchains. Now, we got our start a little over 6 years ago, and it was essentially to build the software to conduct the Mt. Gox hack investigation. In parallel, one of our co-founders, Michael Groninger, was a co-founder at Kraken, the large cryptocurrency exchange as well. And his role there as chief operating officer was to try to get a bank account for Kraken. And he saw how difficult this was because so many financial institutions were so distrustful of cryptocurrency in general. And so he set out then to create this type of software which could really allow people to see what's going on these public blockchains, decipher where funds are going, and then allow them to implement, proper anti-money laundering controls, as well as to do proper investigations. At this stage, we have offices in New York, in Washington, D.C., in Copenhagen, in London, where I'm based, in Tokyo, in Singapore, and was mentioned, we just raised a recent round of $100 million at over $1 billion valuation. So we're very pleased to keep up our activities as we expand globally. Essentially, this is what we do as well. If you're familiar with cryptocurrency, which I imagine most here are, you know what it looks like on a public block explorer. It's this image on the left, right? We're looking at a single transaction. It's a bunch of alphanumeric strings, several inputs and 2 outputs. But what Chainalysis does is cluster addresses based on a lot of proprietary heuristics that we use. And we do this programmatically. So we say all of these addresses are actually under the control of the same wallet software. This is one entity. The second piece of what we do then is attributing that entity, as we call it. So assigning a name for it. So on the right is what you would see in our software. It's essentially, this is a transaction going from Coinify, a merchant processor, to Bitstamp, a very large European exchange. And then this data source that we have underlies all of our user-facing products and is the basis for a lot of the analysis that I'm going to present to you today. So let's get to the recent surges in Bitcoin prices we've seen. Now, obviously, I mentioned we do on-chain data analysis, but I mean, there's a lot of sources of information about what's going on here, which make it quite clear even to the casual observer. Here you're looking at recent Google Trends information on the phrase how to buy Bitcoin over the last 5 years. Now, I'm sure most people in this space and attending this talk will certainly remember the end of November of 2017 when we saw the all-time highs previously. But what's remarkable is as we've basically crossed all-time highs yesterday, and albeit come down a bit since then, you'll notice that there's not this same interest in Google search trends. And we really equate this as a proxy for retail investing. And then we further dig into it based on some of the on-chain data that we see. So we do believe that Bitcoin's price is rising because demand for Bitcoin is increasing at a time when there's relatively few Bitcoin available to buy. While the total supply of Bitcoin grows every day as more is mined, the actual amount available to buy really depends on whether holders want to sell or trade it, right? This is basic supply and demand. But at Chainalysis, we try to quantify this tracking the amount of Bitcoin held in wallets that send less than 25% of the Bitcoin they've ever received. So these ones we refer to as illiquid or investor-held Bitcoin, what you might call hodlers, right? And then we compare that to Bitcoin held in wallets that send more than that, which we refer to as liquid or trader-held Bitcoin. And you can see these here, right? The investor Bitcoin is the orange line, the trader-held Bitcoin is the yellow line. So the chart shows how the amount of Bitcoin in each category has changed since January 17 alongside the price, thereby capturing the market dynamics of both the current price surge and that of 2017. And of course, you'll see that the amount of investor-held Bitcoin, that which is moving less than 25% from their wallets, is rising dramatically, and correspondingly so is the price. So the number of people trying to buy is obviously quite a bit higher than those willing to sell. And we've seen that this is a result of institutions moving into the space. I know there's been a lot of news about this recently. So I'm happy to push that forward. But with that, let's kind of get into what we call trends in just global cryptocurrency flows. So on the left is a screenshot from our investigation tool. Here I've searched for a service, a hosted wallet in this case, and this is the profile that comes up. Here we can see how much cryptocurrency was sent and received in a given time period. But how do we know which countries are behind that volume? Well, this is here at the bottom. It's actually impossible to know on a wide scale because we don't collect information on individuals, right? People are not identified on blockchains with their country. So what we have to do is arrive at an estimation. We do that by merging our data set with the distribution of web traffic to a cryptocurrency service's website. So we have an example here where of the people searching for this particular site, about 96% are from South Korea. And this is indeed a South Korean-based exchange. So we'd allocate 96% of that volume that we measured at Chainalysis to South Korea, 0.7% to the UAE, 0.7% to the US, and so on. So we apply these web traffic shares for all sites for which Chainalysis tracks crypto activity and add up all the volume at the country and regional level. And that starts to give us an estimation. In order to make our estimates more robust as well, we've considered things like the time zones where cryptocurrency activity takes place, the local currency trading pairs offered by exchanges, the language options on the website, as well as where the business is located. And as we get into this, again, I always like to explain some of the caveats to the data. So for the skeptics out there, where we've taken these into account, but as with all estimates, there are some drawbacks. And the most obvious limitation with the web traffic methodology I described is that if someone is accessing the website of a cryptocurrency platform, that doesn't directly translate that into them using cryptocurrency, right? And so our estimates are the best available, but they're still an estimate nonetheless. It doesn't take into account limitations from someone using a VPN. At times we pick up a different country than where a person actually is. However, we're considering millions of transactions, so this activity would need to be extremely widespread for it to be meaningfully affecting our data. And then results are somewhat biased because we apply web traffic shares regardless of transfer size, so we're likely underestimating volumes in the country where users are making large transfers. And so now I want to just jump into what is it that we can do after applying this methodology to get a sense for what is the global crypto adoption index? What are we seeing across the world? Well, we know that cryptocurrency has continued to gain traction, but there aren't many objective measures of usage across countries. So that's why we created this global cryptocurrency adoption index to measure adoption patterns all over the world, specifically grassroots level adoption. So to get an adoption index by everyday users, we weighted the components feeding into the index to account for each country's population and economy size. And that way we can highlight countries where the most residents have moved the biggest share of the financial activity to cryptocurrency. So there's 4 metrics that feed into this index, right? On-chain value received, weighted PPP per capita. The goal of this metric is really to rank each country by total crypto activity, but scale to favor where that amount is more significant based on the wealth of the average person within the country. On-chain retail value transferred, which is also weighted by PPP per capita. And here we're measuring the activity of non-professional individual crypto traders. So any transaction really under $10,000 US worth of crypto. We look at number of on-chain crypto deposits weighted by number of internet users. The goal of this metric is to rank the countries based on whose residents are carrying out the highest number of crypto transactions. And then finally, peer-to-peer exchange trade volume weighted by, again, PPP per capita and number of internet users. So I've noted in the caveats that trade volume isn't expressed on blockchains. However, we do consider a subset of order book data from 2 popular peer-to-peer exchanges, Local Bitcoins and Paxful. So we know peer-to-peer activity is especially important in the developing world, so that's why we've tapped into data from these 2 popular exchanges whose metrics act as an overall approximation. So I will say that all of this data is available here at markets.chainalysis.com for free. This is a consumer-facing intel report that we give on financial data. And here we combine each of these 4 metrics and arrange them on a scale from 0 to 1. And because crypto is truly global, we did this activity for 154 different countries. So we've reported the rankings and where each of those 154 comes in. So with that, we can take some takeaways from the top 10, right? And there's really 3 themes that emerge here. First and foremost, in Eastern Europe, Ukraine tops the index and Russia comes second. The absolute amounts of activity we measured there are smaller than China and the US, for example, but when we consider the size of both countries' populations and economies, we see consistently high grassroots adoption across the 4 metrics we consider. Excuse me, the next piece is developing countries. We also see quite a few developing countries with high grassroots cryptocurrency activity in the top 10 as well. And actually the top 4 countries for weighted peer-to-peer exchange activity all appear here in the Global Crypto Adoption Index's top 10. So that's Kenya, Venezuela, Nigeria, and Colombia. Excuse me there. And then finally, we see global actors. This is the third trend that we see, big volumes in China and the US, which, as you'll know, have really well-established trading economies, so high that even when we scale by population and economy size, they still appear in the top 10 for crypto adoption. So with that, I kind of want to take a dive into which region has the highest retail market share, right? It may not be surprising, or it may be, depending on what you know of these types of trends, but Africa is indeed the region with that. So we do see that Africa is home to 3 of the highest ranking countries on the index, and in peer-to-peer trading, as I said, has a lot to do with that, but retail usage is also something that we've observed in the on-chain data. So in North America and East Asia, transfers over $10,000 make up a much larger share of the crypto activity. Retail size transfers, for instance, under $10,000 make up a larger share of Africa's crypto activity than any other region. So there's potential for even more widespread adoption in Africa if crypto businesses continue to expand there. The appetite is certainly there, and regulatory talks are underway, particularly in Nigeria and South Africa, which can really foster consumer confidence and build a virtuous cycle of cryptocurrency adoption. And at the same time, the vast majority of value sent to Africa comes from outside the region. So only 5% of the crypto volume sent to Africa originates in Africa, less than any other region, frankly. So really the question is, why is so much crypto activity in Africa tied to other regions? Well, overseas remittances are a crucial part of the economy for many parts of Africa. And merchants conducting business are also connecting Africa to other regions. So let's take a look at those other regions then. Here we examine the total value of transfers in and out of Africa and the number of transfers by regional counterparty. So the size of the bubble here refers to the average transfer size. Immediately we see that Northern and Western Europe is a leading counterparty in terms of the number of transfers sent and received by Africa. We know there's a large immigrant population that left Africa for Europe, and therefore there is reason to think that an efficient payment system would need to connect these 2 regions. So another trend that stands out is the largest average transfer size is those transfers between East Asia and Africa. This also makes sense because East Asia is a very large commercial counterparty to countries within Africa. Ray Youssef, the CEO of Paxful, told us an example where a cryptocurrency user ran a business importing video games from China to sell in Nigeria. So his bank wouldn't let him wire money to China. So in the past, he had to get US dollars on the black market and somehow get the dollars to China, usually via Hong Kong. But with cryptocurrency, he can sell Bitcoin to receive Chinese yuan in any major digital wallet, and he can send it directly to his counterparty in China. So crypto here is really enabling industry. In that commercial aspect of trade with East Asia is a common narrative we've heard. These photos are from an article written by Reuters, where they did a story in the Africa section of our report, and they actually went and interviewed about 24 people on the ground. Abolaji Adonjo on the left, they're demonstrating a Bitcoin application on his mobile phone. He sells his mobile phone accessories in Lagos, Nigeria, which are sourced from China, and he pays those Chinese suppliers in Bitcoin. This has helped boost his profits because he used to have to buy dollars using the Nigerian naira to get to China, but there were high fees and there's currency devaluation where it costs more naira to exchange for a dollar over time. So cryptocurrency here really provides a convenient alternative. Adonjo is one of many people behind the cryptocurrency boom in Africa that we've seen, which is driven by payments from small businesses, as well as remittances sent home from migrant workers. And so here we have a little bit of a case study, if you can read it, but I'll walk you through it. It's essentially one way an immigrant sends money home is through gift card remittances. Now, this is research from Matt Alberg, a data scientist and analyst who is behind a really insightful blog called usefultulips.org. But he recently shared findings on a strong gift card remittance market with Nigerian immigrants in the US. So essentially, here's how they transfer value to friends and family back home. The Nigerian immigrant first purchases a gift card, for example, an Amazon gift card with US dollars at a convenience store in America. It's widely available. The immigrant then takes a picture on the gift card and receipt with their phone and sends those pictures to family or friends in Nigeria using WhatsApp, for example. So the family or friend who receives that pictures of the gift card uploads those pictures to Paxful and trades the gift card pictures for Bitcoin. And then they complete a second trade, trading the Bitcoin for a Nigerian currency through a bank transfer. So that may seem like quite a process, but a lot of Nigerians who engage in these trades say it's completed in 20 or 30 minutes. Besides the speed of convenience, the favorable exchange rate is a big factor in converting US dollars to Naira. So Matt Alberg also reported that Nigerian immigrants in the US could actually take a 30% loss on the value of their gift card while still achieving more Nairas delivered to their family than any other traditional remittance channels offered. That's how much is saved in terms of fees and everything by using this process. So in Nigeria's currency, the Naira has been subject to manipulation and capital controls in recent years, which also contribute to that. So one thing I want to point out then again, while I would say the vast majority of this process is legal and totally in line with AML compliance and things like that, anytime you see these types of remittance type payments, it represents a vector for criminal activity as well. So this is again why we start to study some of how global geographic flows of cryptocurrency might make their way into money laundering networks that previously existed in the fiat world. So with that, given the audience, I do want to dive a little bit into Northern and Western Europe. Here is one where we see professionals dominate this space. So you've seen this graph, earlier today on the professional share of the market transfers over $10,000 at a time. And one of the striking things for me about this chart is that in many months, Northern and Western Europe and North America actually move in tandem. So that's one example where we see the markets are extremely similar. And Northern and Western Europe's biggest trading partner by value transferred and by number of transfers is also North America. So North America's counterparty chart looks very similar. Basically, we just swap out North America, the yellow bubble at the top right, with Northern and Western Europe, and indicating that the average size is exactly the same, frankly, between these two. You'll also notice that East Asia's bubble in the orange is really large. This indicates that the average transfer size between Northern and Western Europe to East Asia transfers are larger on average than those sent to North America, which could be a larger share of volume sent from Northern and Western Europe to North America is made up of retail transfers as opposed to institutional ones. The other piece you'll see here is that between North America and Northern and Western Europe, a lot of the top 10 services, several appear for both. So it's the same mechanism, the same exchanges, centralized exchanges that are being used to transmit this money between both. Another area where they kind of move together and share very similar typologies. Now, one area we see also is that Northern and Western Europe uses more Tether. Typically, the exact currencies used tend to mirror each other. Bitcoin dominates in both markets, and we see similar levels of Ethereum, USD Coin, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin, but the difference here really is Tether. And that could be based on the fact that in North America, Tether, while it only makes up 14% of crypto transactions, it's 18% in Northern and Western Europe, which is unsurprising because North Americans would have better access to US dollar through other means. So here we see cryptocurrency really taking its role in providing access to the US dollar through stable coins, such as Tether. And then finally, we see higher shares from Northern and Western Europe to other regions. This is another area where they differ. It's small in each case, but consistent across all regions. So the orange here is Northern and Western Europe, while the yellow is North America. And we don't frankly have a definitive answer on why this is, but one reason we speculate is that remittances market in Northern and Western Europe, as the region is home to more economic migrants, is just a bigger market. So taking fiat currency as a model, Northern Western Europe remits about twice as much value as that of the amount sent to North America. So it's possible that some of the traditional remittance money has shifted now into cryptocurrency as it's an easier alternative. So now that we've seen kind of, Pardon? Now that we've seen some of these global cryptocurrency flows, I would like to shift into looking at some trends in crypto crime, right? Because essentially that is a lot of what we do as well, helping financial institutions remain compliant, but also government institutions investigate crime as it occurs.
Duncan, we're actually now at 20 minutes. Would it be possible to make this the last topic that you will address today?
Yes, absolutely.
Many
I'll touch
thanks.
on the threat landscape and then dive into ransomware.
That's
and
great.
then we have it.
Thank you.
So as you know, various regions of the world have different threat landscapes, right? We see transnational crime occurring across borders. In the Middle East, we see terrorist organizations who raise money for financing campaigns through cryptocurrency. A lot of cyber threat and ransomware occurs in Eastern Europe and Russia. And frankly, we have state actors in North Korea who are financing weapons of mass destruction programs using cryptocurrency as well. So with that, I would like to touch on ransomware as my last topic to stay on time for you guys. I will skip the ransomware caveats because frankly, they're quite well known, but frankly, most people don't report when they've been the victims of ransomware, but we follow it on chain to see what are the clusters that actually are receiving the most payments. And frankly, they come from a bunch of similar places and they aggregate into one. So while ransomware is on the rise, the median size of ransomware paid has decreased slightly, right? And a lot of this that we see is that total revenue in campaigns that we tracked from 2018 was about 16 million, but it's gone up to 46 million in 2020, almost a threefold increase. And the number of payments, which isn't pictured here, is decreased from 3K to about 2,100 in 2020. The reason the total value has increased is because of huge outliers. Many of you may have seen Manchester United, for instance, being hit with this ransomware attack, and they're in this little bit of an impossible situation. It cost them something like 20 million pounds sterling in order to pay it off. And then they may also be subject to US Department of Treasury sanctions if they actually make this payment, which would be, again, another 20 million pound they would suffer. So we do see this trend where there's a lot of small payments, but then there's also a lot of big ones that are one-offs. And then the other piece I'd like to point out is that a lot of these ransomware strains are interconnected. So a trend we've seen evolve in the last couple of years is what we call ransomware as a service. These are individuals who create a ransomware strain and then operate it as a business. This is a SaaS company, frankly, and they sell a ransomware strain to others. And then those people pay them a cut of any ransomware they take in. So in these graphs, you're looking at ransomware strains paying to each other. So the orange circles you may see is a ransomware strain paying to itself, which is indicative typically of the operator of it paying the creator of it for their service in purchasing and renting the strain. And then in the top right graph, though, you'll notice we see this trend where a lot of the same operators are making payments to a lot of different ransomware strains. And this could be, again, because they're shopping around. They're buying different strains from different vendors and seeing how well they work. And so this is the basis for a lot of the activity that we see coming through. And then, frankly, success can come in a bunch of different ways. We see it could be what we call the big game here on the x-axis, where it's few payments for large money, or spray and pray, as we've termed it, where it's a lot of payments and it just, let's see what comes in. And some of these are big names you guys might recognize from the media and things like that. But it comes in all shapes and sizes. And frankly, that's because it's so many different operators. There's a central function that's creating a lot of these strains, and then a bunch of operators deploying them and receiving the payments. I'll skip this one as we don't have much time. But again, here I would like to point out the interconnectedness of most of the popular strains. This is due to the fact that ransomware as a service has risen, where previously it was individuals making their own ransomware strain and conducting their own campaigns. And in the interest of time, I think I probably arrived at it, so I might leave it there. But these are the trends that we've seen in cybercrime, as I mentioned, and then cyber-enabled crime, where you are taking funds, frankly, from crimes that occur off the chain and using crypto as a remittance. Those are finding their way into global networks of how funds flow throughout the world.
All right, Duncan. Many thanks. Many thanks. Ransomware as a service. Wow, I know a lot about blockchain and crypto, but not as ransomware as a service. Many thanks for sharing your insights. I think you guys have an incredible overview, a global overview of what is actually happening in, especially when it also comes to security and data around cryptocurrencies. So many thanks for sharing all these very interesting insights. I think you're also posting quite regularly some very interesting reports at your website, chainanalysis.com. There are also some trackers, some dashboards that people can access for free with all this kind of data, which is real time being updated. So for people who are interested in these kind of topics and in this data, they can have a look at your website. I was just wondering, to also close off this topic, you mentioned when you were looking at the distribution of crypto, the usage on the global scale, we saw some surprising countries, right? We saw Ukraine, Venezuela, Nigeria, some African countries. One of the key aspects, one of the key arguments that most people have against Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is this complete dialogue about illicit funds. We've seen a little bit about this in the ransomware conversation. But if we look now to the illicit funds on the global scale, it used to be, I think, like 80% of all transactions. Where are we now? Is this still, well, if people, like some people that just don't know about crypto, they still think that I'm dealing with terrorist money or drug dealer money. Where are we right now? Is it still like a huge amount, or is it just this tiny fraction of all the transactions that is being sent over the daily on the network on a daily basis?
Oh, and it's a fantastic question, right? I would hate to leave here having people think that it's this overwhelmingly criminal enterprise using cryptocurrency. So in the past, we saw at its height, it was about 10 to 15% in the days of Silk Road. Now it's less than 1% of economic value that's transferred is connected to illicit activity. So we see these remittances going to Africa. We see new business models evolving. All of this is enabled by a new technology, which frankly is thriving with regulation and with improvements in how people think about how to transfer money. So by no means is it a criminal enterprise at all. But in small instances where it can be facilitating criminal activity, we do like to be helpful there.
We're going to close this keynote. I'm of course very eager to learn what is the most interesting, exciting thing for cryptocurrency happening in the next year. What is the thing that you're really looking forward to? What's kind of development?
Yeah, as much as I try not to take prices day to day, I think it's the global adoption by institutional investors, frankly. Some of the biggest names in the world are really getting on board. I saw recently the Guggenheim Investment Fund was looking to allocate 10% of their portfolio or $500 million into Bitcoin through the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. It's all of a sudden being viewed in times with quantitative easing and COVID and things like that is a place, the safe haven for assets, frankly, that's a lot easier than moving gold. So, we'd love to continue helping to bring transparency to that process, anti-money laundering controls and things to make it easier for people to adopt this, frankly, really wonderful technology. I think the big players in the world moving into it and building trust for it will be the most exciting piece.
We will see. Duncan Hoffman, many thanks for joining us from London again, and we'll hope to see you in the Netherlands soon. Many thanks.
Thanks very much.
We're walking a little bit out of schedule, so we are quickly going to the next and the last part of this session. It promises to be a very interesting dialogue, a panel with some thought leaders from the Netherlands. 6 thought leaders from the Netherlands that will join a discussion on the critical pathways on blockchain technology in the Netherlands. Before we're going to kick off this panel, I would like to invite Arjan. Arjan Goudsblom, are you already here with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Jan.
Very warm welcome. Arjan, you are from Techleap, and Techleap is, besides ABN AMRO, one of the key partners of the Dutch Blockchain Week. So we are very thankful for your participation and your contribution to this event. Can you shortly elaborate what Techleap actually is and what it does?
Sure thing, yeah. Well, first of all, thanks to all the panel members. I can see you like popping in and out for the last half an hour. And I'm very grateful you're all here. And we're very excited to sponsor this particular part of the Blockchain Week. And Techleap, some of you might know the organization already, is a not-for-profit organization that supports startups and scale-ups in the Netherlands. And I'm the connector technology there, beautiful title. But Techleap basically supports startups and scale-ups in 3 different areas. They provide access to capital, access to talent, and access to markets. And since this year, we also have a technology department headed up by Arne Stropos. And the purpose of technology is really to try and lower the barriers for some of both the enabling technologies as well as some of the core technologies like robotics and life sciences to really kind of flourish in the Netherlands. So blockchain is one of those technologies that is high on our list. And we're just really happy for you guys to be involved in this panel. And what I'd love to hear from the panel today is the state of play of blockchain in the Netherlands, but also the barriers that you encounter, and maybe a bit of a benchmark towards international context as well. So I'll be sitting back, and I have a fantastic moderator in the studio called Maarten Smakman, and he will take over from here and lead the conversation with you guys. But thank you, and enjoy the conversation here.
Okay, thank you, Arjan. Yeah, welcome to this interesting discussion, hopefully. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Maarten Smakman. I'm the initiator of Blockchain Village, which is the Amsterdam blockchain ecosystem where we are connecting people from science, education, people from government working in blockchain, and of course also entrepreneurs. And regarding these entrepreneurs, I think we have a really, really interesting panel lined up. And I would like to introduce them to you because, I think this panel, I think I'm gonna name them Team Dutch Blockchain Week. And with this panel, I would like to aim at Arjan as our prime goal. And of course, Arjan explicitly asked us to feed him with the insights from the field and the things we are bumping into in our practical daily jobs. And I think this is a really, really cool chance for us to address our problems, our challenges to people within the government at the right positions. So Techleap is really steaming up for the last few months. And I think the coming year, they will have a great voice within the Dutch government. So it's up to us to make that voice sound as aligned with our experiences in the business community. So first and for all, 6 panelists, I see them on the screen here. Welcome you all. Very cool that you are here. I'm gonna name you first, and then I'm gonna ask you to summarize the business you are representing in a maximum of 3 sentences, because I think we want to save as much time to address the messages to Arjan. So first, Marleen Evertz from Nxchange. Can you please, within a short introduction, tell who you are, what your company is doing, and please have in mind that my 80-year uncle doesn't necessarily have to understand it, but people who are a bit less tech savvy, that would be nice because we are all blockchain enthusiasts. But I would like to make the discussion as accessible as possible also for the non-blockchain people. So Marleen, please.
Thank you, Maarten. So my name is Marleen Evertz. I'm the CEO and co-founder of both Nxchange and Gold Republic, both digital asset trading platforms. Nxchange, which I'm most involved with, is a fully regulated exchange, securities exchange, of which we've tokenized half of the assets, the cash.
Okay.
That's me.
Cool. Thank you, Marleen. Second, Joost van der Plas from Maven 11.
Yeah, Joost van der Plas. I'm founder of and managing partner of Maven 11, a Amsterdam-based venture capital firm investing in blockchain initiatives all over the world.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Third, Joshua Jenster from VID.
Hi, I'm part of the founding team of VID. We make document authenticity verifiable using blockchain tech, allowing companies to verify if a document has been altered or not.
Okay, super. Thanks, Joshua. Sebastiaan van der Land from Wordproof.
Yeah, Sebastiaan van der Land, founder Wordproof. That's what you said. We fight for a trustworthy internet, and we do that through blockchain timestamps. We make sure that media outlets and e-commerce parties can prove their integrity, not only to people and readers and buyers, but also to search engines. And we want the blockchains for social good competition in Europe.
Okay, cool. We will elaborate a bit further later on that. Fifth, Jelle from Dusk Network.
Hey everybody, Jelle, founder and business director at Dusk Network. We build a blockchain for the financial markets. So simply put, that's software to make it easier and faster to create and trade digital shares.
Okay, cool and clear. And last but not least, Arthur Stolk from Icoinic.
Hi, I'm Arthur, founder of Icoinic Capital. We provide several strategies in the form of funds so that investors can invest in cryptocurrencies through our strategies.
Okay, very clear. Thanks, Arthur. Yeah, so like said, Team Dutch Blockchain Week. Keep in mind that we are aiming our message at Arjan, and we're going to do that by 5 statements, which we are going to walk through in 40 minutes time, something like that. Please feel free to jump in if you have the feeling that a certain question is made for you. I will throw in the statements and kick off with naming a name of which I think is suitable for the answer. And from there on, the discussion will find its way. The first statement is, and that is an interesting, though a broad one. What are the short and long-term challenges that the Dutch crypto scene encounters, in your opinion? And I would like to kick off with Marleen on this question.
Well, I think being active in a very regulated environment where you have different players with different roles, you can blockchain whatever you want, but you need to also involve the other larger incumbents to become part of that. So to give you an example, when we've tokenized the cash with ABN AMRO Clearing Bank, we had to basically run this project together, which went very rapidly. I think we've set it up in a few months, but on the security side, you see, we need the CSDs to be involved as well, and we see that it's taking a real long time to achieve that. Having said that, there's definitely some positive movement. So I would say the incumbents and taking regulation into account. Those are the 2 biggest things we have to deal with.
Okay, clear. Joost, what would you have to add on this from your position?
Maybe I'm tend to answer the question a bit broader. I think, if you're looking at long-term and short-term challenges, long-term, I don't think there is a difference between the challenge we have as a Dutch ecosystem and a global ecosystem. I think, we're all looking or trying to push the technology forward to build a new financial infrastructure that leads to applications that people can learn using and eventually also start using. But I think it's a global movement. And if you translate that to what the Dutch ecosystem should be looking for now, or what is the challenge, is to make sure that you contribute, that you don't miss out as a Dutch ecosystem as a whole. And for me, that comes down to things like, creating more awareness, including incumbents, including regulators, but also entrepreneurs. Also making sure that there are educational programs where we can learn about the technology, learn about where the rest of the global ecosystem is going, and ultimately also facilitating with legislation, just trivial stuff like getting a bank account if you're a blockchain startup, which is a hard thing to get arranged these days.
Yeah, and when you're saying not missing out on that global ecosystem, what's your opinion on where we're heading right now at this moment in time?
I don't think we're missing out. We're tend to be a little bit late to the party, maybe. There's a lot of stuff going on in the US and also in the rest of Europe. And I think within the Europe context, there are now, programs getting ramped up, either financially, but also on the more educational, supportive part. So it's definitely not too late, but things should start get rolling now. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, clear. Well, that might be a cool bridge to you, Sebastiaan, because last year, or actually this year, you won a European Union subsidy. So first, can you elaborate a bit on that? And then I'm curious what you learned from the connection with the European Union and with all the other countries on the state of the Dutch ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure. So it was not a subsidy, it was really a prize. So we could do anything we wanted with the money. That was 1 million. It was a competition and it was called Blockchains for Social Good. And 176 participants from over 40 countries participated, and we had the highest rating possible. It was 29.5 out of 30 points with the concept to improve the internet. We did do that ourselves without a party that helped us writing the proposal, which was, we think, a great advantage in doing so. It's really, that was a one-off competition, the Blockchains for Social Good. There are many other opportunities in Europe, especially in the New Horizon program that's coming I guess they launch it in the coming summer. What we see, for us, it's easier to get European money than Dutch money. And that's really a problem, I guess. So, for example, the SBR, that's a process a lot of companies engaged in. It's what you see is the RVO, for example, they're really supportive in the European work we do. They offer to proofread your documents and stuff like that. But the Dutch stuff, there is an intention to do something with blockchain. That's why they made the SBR thing. But how that one is judged, the criteria based on what they do and how they give the money, it's really not blockchain. So the intention is to do something with blockchain, but the outcome, it isn't judged as, okay, what should blockchain bring to this world? And shall we really reward those projects? So my suggestion for the Dutch ecosystem, and it's really blockchain focused and not crypto, because, for example, Wordproof doesn't have a token. But I think there's, if we make blockchain a priority, we must make blockchain a priority. So initiatives like Techleap's, wonderful. The local government, Amsterdam, writing recommendation letters for Wordproof, wonderful. The business ecosystem, wonderful. But in the government, I think we need to make this a priority.
Okay, cool. I wonder, Jelle, do you recognize like the few things that Sebastiaan is addressing, or do you have a complete other angle in viewing this?
Yeah, so I recognize most of it. I don't have exactly the same experiences that Sebastiaan has, but we definitely see in a broader sense that it's easier to get traction in various topics on a European level than on a national level, whether that's subsidies, but we also had those experience with banking or commercial traction or just things like that, right? And it kind of, well, one of the things that it boils down to, and I think Sebastiaan was alluding to it, is that, we want to pioneer this space, right? We want to do blockchain, but we don't really want to do what that then takes under the hood. So we really want this, the optics to be very good, and we want to be part of the game on a European level. But then the discussions are still, I don't know, most times I go to a nationally led discussion, I'm still advised to not mention crypto, right? Or not mention decentralization. And obviously I am now at a stage where I try to throw this into the wind as much as I can, because there's just this illusion that we can expect to lead a space, but still be afraid to discuss half of it. And I'm not saying everything that happens in every corner of the space is great, but this desire to pioneer, but then on the one hand, right, when you're behind closed doors, shooting down everything related to where this technology came from, well, is at the very least naive, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so I think reputation of the space is an interesting topic, right? Also, and I wonder, Arthur, for example, especially when you are working on the financial side of the business. Well, of course, I think for the last year, the whole story of drug dealers and other crooks hanging out with crypto is pretty much it's gone pretty much, because the view has been more on the possibilities. But still, I'm curious, how do you manage this reputation issue still? Because we're not an established branch yet, I would say.
Yeah, so this environment is still lacking regulation, and we were one of the fighters for regulation. So let's hope that Mika will bring this in the upcoming year. But yeah, as a company, how do we do this? We have an external fund administrator that we use. They do all the KYC onboarding, so also the anti-money laundering checks. Besides that, I think that people also want to know from us as a company if we do it correctly. So we have an auditor that audits our fund fully, and we also have an agreed upon procedures. So every quarter they check our gross asset value calculations, they check the client movements, and they check if the assets that we are saying that we have are on the exchanges where we are trading. So this is the maximum that we can do right now to provide comfort to potential investors in this space.
Okay, clear. At this point,
something to this?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because I think you're right that the narrative has switched a bit more away from, let's say the dark sides of crypto. And I think now what's really strong, and what's also proving that it's becoming a criminal activity, becoming user in the corner case of crypto, is the institutional adoption. The number of large institutions now tapping into Bitcoin or crypto or blockchain in the broader sense. That is proving that this is proving that there will be a mass adoption eventually of this new asset class, instead of the narrative that it's only being used for criminals, which is obviously not the case.
No, there was a really cool episode of the CryptoCast where Simon Lelyveld talked about Bitcoin as a public good. And I would highly recommend that one, because that is, in my opinion, a big switch in the narrative. It is a mind-blowing public good. And if seen that way, I think it will be driving the adoption majorly. So that CryptoCast with Simon, also for newbies, I think is really interesting. On this, the border of this regulatory developments and this reputation issue, I think VID can do really interesting things. So I'm wondering, Joshua, do you see a bigger demand for your products and for the things that you are offering? Joshua?
Sorry, my internet just.
Oh.
I think I'm back again, right?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yep.
Yeah, apologies for that. My internet is being a bit inconsistent today, but I think when it comes to adoption, we definitely see an improvement. But I think that's due to the fact that COVID hit us where we operate in. And after a while, we kind of saw new traction coming up, and that was because companies were investing in a new digital way of working, which our service is a really good addition to. So when it comes to, I think, the adoption side, it's mostly because of COVID, but it definitely is it definitely proves that the view that we had on blockchain being a criminal or corrupt space is definitely changed. But when it comes to an even bigger scale, I think I agree with what most others have been saying so far. We kind of need regulations or even certification of certain aspects of the blockchain on the technical side instead of the financial side in order to scale it even higher up or to a next level, so that even bigger corporations can adopt it in business critical systems, because at the moment it's mostly because they want to innovate and try new technology instead of adding it to be a business critical sustained technology.
Okay, clear. I'm wondering, Sebastiaan, like you said, by getting in contact with governments, you find out that the level of knowledge is not at where you want it to be to have a fruitful discussion. What, in your view, would be the best way to get them on the right flight level, so to say?
The thing is, the thing we just discussed was, or the thing I just discussed in making my point was about subsidizing or making funds available. The question is, why should you? I'm an entrepreneur. There are other ways to get funding than government stuff. So, as an entrepreneur, I can find the VCs. 5 VCs a day reach out to me for doing investments. But the thing is, how important is blockchain for Europe and how important is blockchain for the Netherlands? We have a large opportunity here to what Europe did with GDPR was saying, hey, if you want to do business with Europe, you need to comply here, and we care about a better internet. So it's a big commitment, it's a big statement. The question is, and that must be a decision on high level, how important do we think this blockchain thing, and blockchain for me, it's just about integrity by design instead of an afterthought. How important is blockchain strategically? Because we have a big opportunity. As Europe, we have a huge opportunity, but also as the Netherlands, we are a playground for many big companies where we test out, try out concepts. Timestamping, for example, Wordproof does timestamping, VID does timestamping. The Netherlands in Europe is a massive, massive player in timestamping. The Netherlands worldwide is a massive player in timestamping. We have a big opportunity, but also the crypto funds and the things that the other people in the panel are doing. It's our opportunity to put the Netherlands really, on the map worldwide. So if the government thinks this is interesting, this is their opportunity of their lifetime. As the work, the real life use cases we have in the Netherlands are something to be really, really proud of.
Yeah. So, and then my question would be, and it might be a bit controversial, what would you need the government for? So they can also, and I think there's a different angle for the financial products than for Wordproof. Because in the case of Wordproof, I would say they should stay out of the game because you have 4 or 5 VCs at your office every day. Maybe this is different for the financial organizations who look for a bit more of a regulation that would give them more reputation. So I see Jelle nodding or being a bit annoyed. So please elaborate a bit on this.
Okay, can I make one small remark before Jelle? Is that okay for you, Jelle?
Yep.
Yeah. So for us, the getting money from governments, that's not the interesting part, but it's really the getting the support and then prioritizing it. We can be front runners in the Netherlands. So I'm not worried about where to get money, but we have everything, every building block to put the Netherlands on the map. Back to you, Jelle.
Thanks. The weather report. Just to what I was nodding about. So when you design systems like this, right, blockchain by themselves are very incentive-based systems, but you can also look at funding that way. So a lot of the products or the companies that are being built serve certain interests, right? And when these interests, for example, are more private, so you're a commercial company that uses blockchain as part of your stack, then VC funding might be great. However, if you're building something that's decentralized or open source, then you serve a public interest, which means that it's typically very hard to get specific profit-driven entities to invest in you, because why should they pick up the bill for something that benefits everybody? And this is also where governments can play a crucial role because they're kind of Well, in some cases, the only kind of institution that can say, hey, this is something that is valuable to our country as a building block for the type of place that we want to be in the widest sense. And we understand that we're the only ones that can pick up that bill, because as soon as we leave this to the market, then the interests start to change. The people start to, start pushing for returns or, normal commercial interest. There's nothing against them, but it will corrupt the product in some senses, in some business cases. So that's why such a crucial role, if you want to really deliver on some of the potential of blockchain and decentralization and open source collaboration, then they play a hugely important role.
Okay, clear. I'm curious whether someone in the panel would like to add to that.
I think if the difficulty in, at least from our perspective, is that how do you use blockchain and what advantage does it give? And I'm actually a lot, I think compared to the others, quite positive. I'm very reliant of the AFM, for example, who's very collaborative in new initiatives and thinking how it should be set up. So those things are very helpful. But my experience, at least, I'm thinking like, okay, where can it be improved? The funny thing is, if I would have approached the regulator through sandbox environment or whatsoever, I would have never been able to do what we are currently doing, and that is a strange thing. So the infrastructure that is set up to promote new initiatives, if you approach it from that way, then you probably will never get through, and that's a bit strange. But on the other side, kudos for our team at the AFM and how they work with us and how they really think how we can use blockchain to make things more efficient, better working, etc. So I don't want to be only negative about what we're doing in the Netherlands. I think that we, from a securities perspective, we are we are way ahead in what is possible and what not. So.
I recognize that a lot, Marleen, because a big thing in my experience is that people are willing to cooperate and to collaborate, but it's hard for them to really get behind initiatives because they just lack the knowledge. And with this knowledge, there's some spiritual backhold. So it's hard for people from governments to really jump in because the knowledge is just you need to have a lot of knowledge before really backing up ideas. And it's that's what it is. I think in this line, I'm curious because of course it's important to help governments understand the technology better, but I'm also fiercely believe in the younger generation, in education and with working with universities. So I'm curious how you look at this. So is it for you as business, you with your business, is it possible to find the right talent? Is there enough talent? I think this is an important question. If you really want to build companies, you need to have the right people and the right talent. So Arthur, can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yes. So for us, we develop a lot of strategies in the high frequency trading area, and for us there is a big pool of big talents right now. And what we see is that a lot of freshly graduated students are open and willing to start at a crypto trading firm like us. So we have a big pool to choose from.
Cool. Joshua, what would you have to say on this topic?
Well, I think there's a very big scarcity in tech talent already. And when it comes to blockchain being one of a more, let's say, lesser known or lesser experienced way of working in the tech sector, I think having proper tech talent is actually very difficult to find. But I think there's a lot of initiatives going on that really do push education when it comes to these kinds of new technologies. So I know, for example, Jenster is one of our business contacts, and they're pushing ways to develop new opportunities for developers, in a sense, so that they can educate themselves on what is this blockchain technology and how do we actually fit and how can we add to the whole ecosystem of development. And I think, and I'm looking at Sebastiaan here, but the open source industry is also picking up a lot of the innovations and additions to the blockchain technology. So I think that's a really good trend that we're seeing. It's just that finding proper Dutch blockchain devs is difficult. It's very difficult.
Okay, thanks, Joshua. So we're heading for the wrap up, and I would like to have a little round. Because so far the things I hear, it's about regulatory stuff, it's about reputation, but that one is slowly moving to the background, and it's about education. So I would like you to pick one of those three with a small elaboration on it, and that one to round it off, because we're running out of our time schedule. So please, Joost, can you kick that one off?
Yeah, I can, but I won't pick one. I'll add one if that's okay with you, because I think one thing that needs to be added is mindset. And no, I think if you compare the Netherlands with, for example, the US, which traditionally has more access to capital, developers and stuff like that, the mindset in that ecosystem is far more opportunistic, future-driven. You know, there is a lot of imagination where this technology can bring us. And what needs to be done, and we tend to be more, you know, I guess it's a cultural burden. We're more sober and looking at short-term use cases and, you know, detailed business planning and business case and stuff like that. And I think, you know, it goes from entrepreneurs. However, in this panel we have entrepreneurs that are, I think, standing above the rest of the ecosystem, but. From entrepreneurs to investors to corporate organizations, you know, we have to create a mindset that this is a very disruptive technology, and we have to now start putting effort in it, and then, you know, eventually regulation will always follow innovation. Don't wait for the regulator, just go ahead and build the future.
Cool. Yeah, that's a beautiful one. Imagination, I really like that one. So, and you're leaving the rest of the panel with a fourth one. So, Sebastiaan, please.
Yeah, I think, for example, there's the Singapore blockchain thing where many of us here, I know VID is part of it, Ledger Laboratory is part of it. We're welcomed with open arms there to tell about the solutions we have made in the Netherlands. So great initiatives are happening. That one was initiated by the Netherlands, so that's great as well. Talent, sort of to... in general, the state for being a blockchain business here is good. In Europe, it's good, and in the Netherlands, it's good. It's, for example, every month I get a few invites to do from researching students on blockchain. They're so knowledgeable, and those are people from the UvA, from the VU, and I'm so impressed by how deep the thinking on blockchain is at those universities. That comes because of the great universities, but secondly, because a choice for blockchain is always a choice by heart. You fall in love, and from then you never want to do something else. And keep up the great work. A lot, for example, the local governments in Amsterdam, they write recommendation letters. They do everything to support us. The big publishers, they're really open to trying stuff. So to all of us, to the ecosystem, keep up the great work. And for the Netherlands, especially for the Netherlands, inside the Netherlands, make this work, make it a priority to, a strategic priority. We are front runners. The businesses here are front runners. Super cool. So we need to leverage it.
Super cool, Sebastiaan. I love your enthusiasm, by the way. So it's really energizing. It's a cool thing. Joshua.
Well, it's hard to continue this positive note of Sebastiaan. I think I'd like to finish this off with a combination of what Sebastiaan said and Joost. I think the mindset within these ecosystems at the moment is we're all working together to make this an even bigger space and to even adopt more use cases, and I think that's a very good thing to do. So I want to sort of have Techleap, for example, or the Dutch Blockchain Coalition or Blockchain Coalition Netherlands, and all these kinds of parties. I think I want to tell them to keep up the great work of combining these use cases, finding the right partners for the right technology, as well as financial innovations. And I think the government can do a lot more to sustain these kinds of partnerships, like Sebastiaan said, but we're doing a great job already. And I think when it comes to mindset, let's all make a bigger pie so that we all can get a bigger piece of it. If you want to look at it from a commercial perspective. But when it comes to the mindset and the ecosystem, I think we're doing great, and we have to just keep it up to make it even better.
Okay, super cool, Joshua. Jelle, please.
Yeah, so a lot of positivity, so I guess I'll crank it down again. No, so I think the Netherlands have been very proficient at regulating, and we've done very well to prevent like negative excesses and scams. But I also think that in some regards, we've created a bit of an environment that has become less effective at spinning up a lot of new companies in the space or even promoting this. So obviously, it's great to see everybody again, but it can be a little bit of a sign on the wall that it's all familiar faces, speaker lists, schedules, you name it, right? And it would also be very fun to join a panel and see 6 people like, how did I miss this, right? I need to get back out and see what's really happening at over the last year, because there's just a huge cost and time burden imposed on companies in our space, right? And this is regulators, infrastructure, financial institutions, everything. And so many of kind of my wider sense colleagues that I speak to are very, very skeptical about, if I would have to start this business today, would I still do it, right? Knowing what I know now or seeing what the space is now might not even be possible. So there's obviously, a lot to be done for the powers that be and making it cheaper and making it a better space or making it more accessible for new companies to arise. But I also think that for the companies that were privileged enough to start early or do very well, or you name it, to really continue the momentum that's now kind of coming up and really drive the message home, right? Because education has been very lopsided. We've talked about it a lot of times where people have kind of gone in blockchain hiding to get bank accounts and all that kind of stuff, avoiding the trigger words because we need to participate in this economy, right? But that is now slowly kind of starting to get behind us. So this is kind of where the companies that are in that arena really need to step forward and kind of no longer give convenient narratives or hide what is truly possible. We need to kind of, if the top down isn't going fast enough, then we need to start dragging them into that center space as well.
Okay, cool. Really good. So it's almost impossible to counter Sebastiaan's enthusiasm, but I think it's really good to have a nuanced view because it's definitely not only sunshine. So thanks for that one, Jelle. Arthur.
Yeah, I want to pick the regulation side. So what we need in this space is a clear legal framework where we all can operate in, and that all the rules across Europe are the same for every crypto company or crypto trader. I think that will give lots of more clarity to everyone, but also to new investors. And then we have all the tools and the sets ready to make this industry mature, because we're still lacking the maturity right now. We're there for a big piece, but the legal framework will make this, will create the next step in this industry. And I hope that the regulation, the MiCA regulation on markets and crypto assets from the EU will be there 2021, and that implementation will be there in 2022. Okay. So just hold on a little bit more for the regulation.
Okay, very clear answer. Thank you, Arthur. And we started off with Marleen, and we're finishing it off with Marleen. So please.
Yeah, I would really vote for more collaboration, more real life projects. If we take, for example, 2 tokens, which we're now going into phase 2, I experienced this so fantastic that regulators are involved, corporates are involved, tech development companies are involved. Everybody's really collaborating, and this has been so good because we've resolved so many issues. That you can simply not think of on your own, but also cannot finance, because you have such a long leapway in this innovation space, you cannot finance it on your own. And by just joining forces and producing real life cases and really building them and doing it, I think that is one of the things that I experience as most positive things. And I would also very much like if the tax departments are going to be more involved, because we have the regulators, the Dutch central banks also sort of looking into it, etc. But I see massive issues coming up for how to treat all these new opportunities and all these new possibilities to fund or to trade or to own or to use assets. How we need to treat that from a tax perspective. I think that is one of the biggest issues coming up.
Yeah, fully agree. Clear. I see. I hear some nodding from the rest of the group. So that is it. It's a wrap, I would say. Thanks for all the very valuable contributions. I would say Team Dutch Blockchain Week. Because I think Arjan is very well served with all the answers and all the insights that you gave Techleap from your specific places and companies. So thanks so much for that, and I hope to see you next time in real life or in a setting like this. But thanks so much for your contribution, and have a good day all. Yeah, and then I'm gonna give the word to Jan again. So we're gonna switch, and I wish you all a very good day. Up. Oh, dan moet je deze pakken, denk ik. Oh, okay.
All right. Well, distinguished members of the panel, also a great thank you from my side. Really enjoyed this conversation with Maarten. Maarten, also, thank you so much for being the co-host of this panel. Thank you so much. It's already the end of Dutch Blockchain Week, day number 1. We are extremely thankful. Thank you for, of course, first of all, the speakers that have joined us from all over the world today, sharing their insights, their knowledge. But also thank to you. The Dutch Blockchain Week is a voluntary initiative. And we are therefore very thankful for everybody who made it online, like you, who watched the stream, who watched the event, who participated. We were flooded with some great questions, comments, and so forth. So also, thank you, the hundreds of viewers that have been with us today. It's the end of the first day. Tomorrow in the afternoon, we will have 2 incredible sessions with speakers from the Dubai government, from South Africa, from New York, organizations like Consensus, on topics like DeFi, CBDC, and much more. We're really looking forward to tomorrow. Of course, we're hoping to see you tomorrow again. Many thanks again for tuning in, and hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks.